Thank you. Thanks for having me, having us. So, uh, as someone who is from Turkey and who lives in Canada for the last 5 years, I always had a chance to examine the Turkish foreign policy with an external perspective for the last 5 years. So, and in all the classes I teach, or in all the discussions I have with my colleagues, or in the seminars I attend, they always ask me the same question: what's happening with Turkey and the Turkish foreign policy? Because since the beginning of 2022, the traditional, or let's say conventional, Turkish foreign policy, which had been ongoing since 2016, has witnessed a tremendous change. I call it a U-turn in Turkish foreign policy since the beginning of 2022. And in my presentation, I will try to indicate some of these milestones which can be considered as the determinants of this new shift. So to start with, the Turkish foreign policy since 2016 was predominantly shaped by the military coup attempt in July 15th. In July, there has been a military coup attempt in Turkey organized by a group of soldiers and some bureaucrats who were all members of an organization called Fethullah Gulen organization. Fethullah Gulen is a preacher who has been living in the United States since late 1990s. And he was a tool of Turkish government since 1980s, actually, in order to establish a kind of Turkish Islamic synthesis in Turkey and in the neighboring countries. So he has been a useful tool by the recent Turkish government after 2002, and they collaborated with Gulen and his organization and in different areas, determining Turkish politics, Turkish foreign policy, the Turkish education system. But then, starting from 2013, the Turkish government, I mean the ruling party in Turkey, AKP, Erdogan's political party, and Gulen started to have some problems. I call it, once you get the cake, who is going to use which part of the cake, who is going to have how many slices was the main problem. By cake, I mean the Turkish government and control of the Turkish Republic. So, and as a result of this, between 2013 and 2016, these two groups have openly criticized each other and also had different levels of conflict. Erdogan used his government power in order to eliminate their impact within the Turkish society. And eventually in July 2016, a military coup attempt happened, which ended with a harsh purge of Gulenists within the Turkish government, as far as we know, the ones who were already recognized as members of this organization. So, of course, there had been some other problems related with this purge, because while the Turkish government was purging the Gulenist members, they also purged any other opposition members within the Turkish bureaucracy, or especially within the Turkish academia. And Erdogan and his fellow policymakers have blamed some neighboring countries financing or supporting this Gulenist military coup attempt after the attempt failed. And Erdogan has established closer ties and relations with Russia, as a result of this, because he believed that since Gulen is in United States, he believed that he was also supported by some segments of American decision makers. Therefore, he and Turkish foreign policy shifted towards closer relations with Russia after the military coup attempt. And also Erdogan and his policymakers have perceived United Arab Emirates and Egypt as countries behind the coup attempt. Erdogan used a very hostile language towards the United Arab Emirates, sometimes not mentioning the names of other countries, but also addressing some other countries within the region as potential supporters of this military coup attempt, and blamed them at different levels in different venues. And between 2016 and 2022, this became the conventional / traditional Turkish foreign policy, as I have mentioned in the beginning of my presentation. In 2022, in the beginning of 2022, Turkey started to face some domestic issues. For instance, an ongoing economic crisis since the COVID-19 and its harsh impact on the Turkish society was now very obvious. People and their income, since their income decreased, people were complaining about the economic policies of the Turkish government at different levels and with a wider audience. And in addition to this, in the same year, I mean, a political party was already established a couple of years ago, but in the beginning of 2022, a political party appeared, and its leader, as an opposition political party, started to mention that the real problem of the economic issues, the real cause of the economic problems that have been witnessed in Turkey was the refugees. Currently, Turkey hosts approximately, the exact number is not known, but approximately 6 to 8 million of refugees from Syria and Afghanistan in the country. And of course, these refugees have the right to work. They are used as, in some cases, used as a cheap workforce. In some cases, they are using the social benefits of the Turkish government. And because of this, the Turkish public opinion was shaped with this anti-immigrant propaganda of this political party, and with the statements of this political party and with the ongoing economic crisis, people considered the immigrants as the reason of economic crisis and inflation, which is argumentable. I mean, we can discuss on this for hours if there are any questions about this, but there are some factors which really cause the immigrants, or the refugees, in other words, to be considered as the reasons of the economic crisis and inflation, but that's not 100% a fact. The ongoing structural problems of Turkish economy, the Erdogan government's insistence on the on interest rates, on lowering the interest rates in Turkish banks, and of course, the COVID crisis and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which started in February 2022, were also other factors that accelerated this economic crisis and the inflation in Turkey. So when war in Ukraine started, when Russia occupied Ukraine, when Russian forces entered into the territory of a sovereign nation in February 2022, Turkey named this occupation as a war. There are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is obviously the Turkish ties with Russia. As I said a couple of minutes ago, after the military coup attempt of 2016, Erdogan's government established closer relations with Russia because they considered Russia as not an ally, but as lesser of the evil, let's say. So this was the perspective of Erdogan's government. So, and Turkey, instead of blaming Russia as the others NATO leaders did, tried to play an intermediary role between Russia and the West since the beginning of this occupation in February 2022. But of course, if you want to play an intermediary role in a region which is shaped by this crisis, by this war, by this occupation, as a country, you also need to have better ties and relations with all the other members of the region. But again, since 2016, Turkey has followed a traditional, conventional foreign policy, which predominantly blamed the neighboring countries for the military coup attempt. And of course, Erdogan used some other words in order to blame, for instance, the leader of Egypt, Sisi, and he called him as a military dictator, as a someone who carried out the military coup. That's what exactly happened in Turkey in 2016. So he always used this pejorative language towards the leader of Sisi, and again he had this negative language towards the Saudi Arabia and also United Arab Emirates. So, but this was not a good way for Erdogan's government to carry out the intermediary role. So what Erdogan and Turkey needed in order to continue with this intermediary role was to change the perspective of Turkish foreign policy from a negative to a neutral / positive view in the eyes of the parties of this conflict. I'm talking about Russia versus West, let's say. And as soon as the occupation of Ukraine started, Erdogan, since a very long time, has visited United Arab Emirates. United Arab Emirates is important for two reasons. I mean, this visit is also important for two reasons. One, since early 2010, or let's say 11, Turkey and the United Arab Emirates were using proxies in the region against each other. These proxies were sometimes some organized military groups, organized militia, sometimes economic interests. And the second reason why this visit is so important is because finally Turkey has decided to establish a closer tie with the Gulf countries since Erdogan survived the military coup attempt of 2016. Then in April 2022, Erdogan visited Saudi Arabia. The relations between Turkey and Saudi Arabia were not so good since 2018, when a Saudi journalist Khashoggi was murdered in the Saudi embassy in Istanbul, and Erdogan used this as an excuse to cut the ties with Saudi Arabia at different official levels, because Erdogan said that the leader of Saudi Arabia, or let's say Saudi Arabia, was a murderer, was an oppressor against the freedom of press, etc. And this was not very much welcomed by the Saudi government, and the Saudi government and the Turkish government had continuously exchanged statements or made some declarations at international levels against each other. So the second step, as I said, after the United Arab Emirates visit, was the visit to Saudi Arabia. And in order to soften the perspective of Turkey among the neighboring countries, Erdogan had to give up his traditional conventional stance against the Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Then in June 2023, Erdogan said he may meet, June 2022, excuse me, Erdogan said that he may meet with Assad for peace in the region. This is also very unexpected, because Bashar Assad and Erdogan were considered as enemies since the beginning of Syrian civil war. The last time they met each other was 2011. And for the first time since the beginning of Syrian civil war, in which Turkey played a very active role, sometimes financing the opposition, sometimes logistically supporting the Free Syrian Army, and obviously sending its troops to a part of the sovereign Syria, and it still keeps them there. Erdogan saying that he may meet with Assad for peace in the region was another important important step in this normalization of relations, and again another indicator of this U-turn in Turkish foreign policy. And finally, during the World Cup in Qatar, Erdogan met with the Egyptian President Sisi. Here we see them holding each other's hands, and the Qatar's leader has his hands on both of their shoulders, patting them. And this was the final step for normalization of Turkish foreign policy with the neighboring countries. Again, there are three reasons. One, the Russia-Ukraine war, which needed Turkey to become a little bit less harsh in its foreign policy towards the regional countries. Two, because of the economic crisis, Turkey obviously needs investments, and obviously Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates have the money to invest in Turkey in order to flourish the Turkish economy. And three, Turkey needed to show to the West that it can still play this intermediary role or the leadership role within the region, regardless of its economic or financial status. However, one other issue that I did not include in my slides, but really want to share with the audience, is the earthquake that happened in the beginning of February and affected Turkey and Syria. This earthquake and the events in the aftermath of this earthquake incident in Turkey also will shape the relations, the foreign policy of Turkey in the coming years. Regardless of the result of Turkish elections, which will happen in May 2023, in 2 months of time, I believe Turkey will start to pursue a more positive approach to the neighboring countries, because after all, the earthquake has clearly indicated that the best way to cope with disasters like this earthquake is to collaborate with the neighboring countries, regardless of their hostile, or your, as a country, your hostile attitude or policy towards them. So what I believe is that as someone, again, who is able to look at Turkish foreign policy from an external, with an external view, I think this sudden U-turn in Turkish foreign policy in 2022 is a very Machiavellist / pragmatist approach. And after the earthquake, the normalization of relations with the neighboring countries will accelerate again, both with a pragmatic approach, but also with the addition of the humanitarian aid that could easily be provided by the neighboring countries in such disasters, which was clearly indicated in the recent events. So thank you for listening, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Can I start, or question part? Maybe no question in the right part? Okay.
Yeah, I think you can.
Okay. Thank you for your contributions, Mr. Altınkars. So today's my topic, Turkey-Egypt relations from the Cold War to the present. Uh, uh, Turkey and Egypt's relations in the Cold War, actually, it's a very uh, close relationships between the start in the Cold War process. You know, in the historical times, Turkey and Egypt very close political relations between two of them. That as you can see, the Ottoman Empire from the expansions from the Middle East that they can conquered by Egypt until this expansion uh, uh, and domination of Ottoman Empire until the end of First World War, Egypt part of the Ottoman Empire. After the First World War, as you can see, the independence emerged by the mandates nations and some of the war of independence process between Turkey and Egypt. Then two states or two countries in 1925 they can start a new state structures and establishment of diplomatic contacts. As you can see the map, the Ottoman Empire greatest extent in the between the centuries. After the the network of relations formed by both states, the Cold War process sometimes problems that could came, especially the Turkey's choices participation in Western camp, which is implemented a more active foreign policy trial. This is a very wrong way to understand for Egyptian side have emerged, especially the main reason for these relations problems provide a leadership of the state of Middle East. In this process, Turkey side established Baghdad Pact formed by the separation between Middle Eastern countries. Egypt's policies led by Nasser by defending Arab nationalism that could contradiction could happen. After the Turkey's effort by Arab countries integrated with the Western world, especially the non-alignment movement meeting, that could be a problem for Arab countries because they say we are living a new perspective. We need a new perspective. We need to follow the uh, third world system. Especially, you know the process about it, but the Suez Canal crisis and the Pan-Arabic Pan-Arabic ideas came from the emerged from the Middle East. Then Egypt, especially leadership with Nasser, much more effective country in the Arab countries, between the Arab countries. Then the two sides of who relationship between two sides, they couldn't, they can cut the ties with each other. Then Nasser administration finished, you know, the assassination assassination Nasser, as my mind doesn't wrong say to me, that Anwar Sadat administration emerged. But later with the Cold War process, the Egypt's administration under the leadership of Hosni Mubarak, the dimension of relations between both countries different and some no ideological approach between two other countries. As you can see, the modern Egypt map. After the Cold War and Arab Spring factor, you know the process about it. The GDP justice, GDP government in Turkey, which came in governments in 2002, they can different policy in the this area. Zero problems with neighbors and multi-faced more foreign policy approach have a Turkey as a model country in the Middle East countries. But the Arab Spring process started, then this political approach fall apart, especially the the start between Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, then Syria. There is a very difficult process for healthy relation between two countries. The fact that actually the Arab Spring came provide the opportunity for Muslim Brotherhood about it. You know the historical times in Nasser period, same Muslim Brotherhood support the Nasser government, but after the ideological differences between Nasser and Muslim Brotherhood, the Nasser eliminate the Muslim Brotherhood movement. After the Arab Spring process, sorry about that. Arab Spring process in the middle of Arab Spring process under Morsi government, the closer relations between Egypt and Turkey have again entered with a very close period. But the collapse of the Morsi administration by coup attempt and the some local street movement, then General Sisi has become a leader of Egypt. After the Sisi government and Sisi administration, Turkey and Egypt relations have cut off between policies aimed sharper confront with. Then especially the policies failure, this structure about Muslim Brotherhood have destroyed faith in the Arab Spring, likely to Cold War process, because they have to very Islamic ideas for their governance. That could be problem for Middle Eastern countries actually. On the crisis problems, Turkey's old general Cihat Yaycı has created a Mavi Vatan strategy about the Arab Spring process, but the Libya divided by three countries. Libya very problematic situations, has a very problematic situations. Egypt and Turkey cut the relationships between two of them. That could be against the Turkey policies followers. Egypt, Cyprus, Israel, Greece, all of Mediterranean countries against to the Turkey Mavi Vatan strategy ideas. These are problematic situations between two countries. On the other hand, you familiar with the process, Qatar crisis with the relations. In these situations, Turkey states who call for dialogue, but the other countries such as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, they can say that isolated countries with Qatar, and they can try to remove the administrations approaching for the Middle Eastern policies. As a result of the situations, we can see the very different approaching in the Middle Eastern countries for Turkey's perspective and Egypt's perspective. Muslim Brotherhood uh, 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 Cold War process, and then after the Cold War process, both times they can not successful governance for Middle Eastern countries. On the other hand, these problems for affected by every countries, especially in nowadays. We say that there are no Arab Spring because the Arab Spring process not very successful for the not a unique model for Middle Eastern countries. This is why the problem for this area that this map this graphical map, you can see the between Middle Eastern countries, international organizations, and Western and Eastern side of continents, not continents, sorry, states, which can relations between their approach to their step by state. You can see the personal benefits and ties between personal benefits as well. These the maps. Then my presentation was finished. Thank you for listening.
So, Mauricio, I think we are finished. And since there is no one among the attendees, I guess we are done. If you don't have any questions for us.
Of course. So I guess thank you for your kind participation. It was great to hear you talk about the situation of Middle East, specifically Turkey. So yes, we have no further question, not also in the WABA app. So thank you for joining us. The important thing is also that this recording will be available for future viewers. So yeah, this is not the end of this session.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for